Hi everyone, Yuli. I will run a small company called Reactify, and we specialize in forms of dynamic music, so generative, reactive, interactive music. And I just wanted to tell you about one of our projects that we did a few years ago, we started it a few years ago, called goPlay. And basically what it is it's a way for musicians, instrumentalists and vocalists and performers in general to have complete control of all of their effects and samples and any electronics that they're playing with, but without the need for any external MIDI controllers. So the idea is that we're just using pitch detection to track what notes the performers are playing and using those notes to actually control events. So for example, you could have a 3-note phrase that triggers a reverb, or you could have another 3-note phrase that turns that reverb off, or you can have a particular musical phrase that starts recording the instrument in the background, and then another phrase might actually fade up a sound bed of little snippets made from those recordings. So I'll just play you an example that we did with a cellist called Gregson. Apologies for the bad sound, it's just the sound from the camera. But what you'll hear is him. That's not it. Sorry. What you'll hear is him playing some phrases, and then the software just literally responds to what he's playing. So. So that 3-note phrase basically activated a sound bed that is made up of little snippets of recordings from what he was playing before he played the phrase. And then another note triggered the tremolo. Note to go through to the loop. That was that 3-note phrase again that took him back to the sound bed. So that was one movement that we wrote specifically for this system. And as you could hear, he had complete control over moving through the effects and moving through the loops and stuff like that, but crucially he didn't need any hardware at all. He was literally just using the notes from his cello. So we did this as a residency in Albury 3 years ago, and then another one 2 years ago. The second time we were joined by an amazing Finnish violinist called Pekka Kusisto, and so we wrote 3 more pieces for this system, all completely custom written in PD, in Pure Data. But we were all really interested in seeing what other people could do with this, because really it's a really interesting new paradigm for performing. So, but I knew that writing everything custom in PD is just not a very practical way for a lot of people to work. So at a hack day a few months ago in Stockholm, I tried to make this into a Max for Live device that people could actually just use in the context of Ableton. So in doing that, I had to simplify it quite a lot. But basically, so this is the Max for Live device, and you've got triggers and outputs, and so you can have 16 pairs of these triggers and outputs, basically. And so here we're determining what the trigger is, so C5, G5, and D sharp. And then here we're defining what should happen when it hears that trigger. So here it's saying that it's going to play the clip, the second on track 7. So you've got other types of triggers as well. You can have a count, which means that it just counts every time it hears a note, and when it gets to a certain count, it will trigger something, and also a range. So you can make things happen, anything above, within a certain range. You could have notes in a certain octave trigger something, or, with this you could do a kind of a digitally prepared piano, I suppose. You could determine a different sample to trigger every time you hear a certain note or within a certain octave or something. And then, because Ableton's it's a really flexible tool for this kind of stuff already, if you can trigger a clip, or you can also trigger a whole scene, it means that you can kind of control everything and anything in Ableton, because you can also do clip automation, which means you could trigger a clip that's sole purpose is to fade up a reverb. So it really just depends on how creative you can be with Ableton. It's like there's lots of generative music techniques that are actually baked into Ableton with the follow actions on the clips and stuff. So this is the point at which I try and give you a live demo, which involves me singing. So let me just check I can get a monitor mix. 1 second. All right, here goes. So those first 2 triggers, one triggered the drums and started the whole arrangement playing. The second one brought in the shaker. I was meant to do something. That again moves on to the next part of the arrangement, and then, okay, I'm going to have to hit a G. So yeah, so it kind of works. So the idea is not really to replace existing MIDI controllers. Clearly, that's not easier than just hitting a button. But it's basically just a new way of thinking about performance. Maybe there are lots of really interesting things that you can do with this that you can't really just do with MIDI controllers. And then, it's kind of a new performance paradigm that I would encourage everyone to have a think about, basically. Because MIDI controllers are great. They come in all shapes and sizes. They give you really detailed control. But in actual fact, nothing's more expressive than just playing your instrument or singing. And this whole area is quite an interesting thing to explore, I think. So basically, the live device, I'm still working on it. I just this morning had an idea, like a much better idea of how to implement it. But if anyone wants to try it out, it's up on GitHub, I think, or I can just send it to you as it is now. No guarantees it'll work. But yeah, I would actually really like some feedback, and all ideas are welcome. So yeah, thanks very much.